slightly right onto exit 28 and toward I-395 north, Providence, then in 0 feet, keep left. Keep left onto exit 28 and toward I-395 north, Providence, then in 50 feet, keep right. Keep right onto exit 28 and toward I-395 north, Providence, then in 50 feet, keep left. Keep left onto exit 28 and toward I-395 north, Providence, then in 50 feet, turn slightly right. Turn slightly right onto exit 28 and toward I-395 north.
3,000 years later.
Keep right onto exit 28 and toward I-395 north, Providence.
I hate phones.
Continue for 21 miles on I-395, then keep left onto exit 35.
I hate phones. The iPhone was the worst invention ever up until generative AI.
The iPhone started the smartphone era. That's a good thing. What's your problem with Apple?
Our predecessors built great things. By the time Charles Babbage met Ada Lovelace, Tim Berners-Lee, working at CERN, saw the need for a great thing to be built: hypertext. This way, research could benefit by linking to other research hosted on other servers. Eventually came Microsoft. You didn't want the operating system, you didn't buy it. Your boss did, or your boss's boss. They marketed to a different demographic, not the specially skilled who actually used their product, but the business owners who decided what product to use. That's been their driving ethos from the start and to this day. Part of that is another corporate philosophy. For every single type of software in the world, we'll make our own damn version.
With blackjack and hookers.
That half of their ethos is admirable. However, an insidious practice is brewing in the software industry. We will handle everything for you. Back in the 90s, Microsoft leaned on their new version of Internet Explorer and tightly integrated it into the operating system. Active Desktop lets you set up your desktop like a web page, but you may not uninstall Internet Explorer. No need to worry about any quote-unquote better alternatives. Fortunately, in 2001, they got brought to court over this. The United States has and used to enforce antitrust law. Microsoft's actions were initially ruled to be illegally maintaining its monopoly position. To settle the case, Microsoft agreed to allow competing software. And for a while, there was great innovation.
These games are getting really realistic.
Meanwhile, there was another cast of people whose money was not being harvested. Normal, socially well-adjusted people. What technology does one invent for them? That's the wrong question. What might benefit them already exists. You just need to convince them they want it. In years past, Photoshop was born as a Mac OS exclusive. That means that as of the late 90s, Apple was cementing its lockdown on the more right-brain type of person. For visual art, you were using a Macintosh, period. In 1998, we got the Rio PMP 300. It was the first commercially successful portable music player. A marvel of engineering, a brilliant invention. It was a portable device that could use the then state-of-the-art MP3 format. But observe Apple's iPod ad. MP3s aren't mentioned. Songs are.
iPod, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
The actual product is barely shown. Instead, what is shown is a very long demonstration of the concept of dancing while listening to a portable music player, boldly advertising your ability to do something you could already do. If you're old like me, you might remember that in those days we had an atrocious habit of brand loyalty. I admit, out of hatred for Apple, I developed way more tolerance for Microsoft than they deserve. In those days, they were much better.
Developers.
Apple, however, has a reality distortion field that's so effective it's depressing. An iPod required you to install proprietary software to run proprietary Apple code in order to put music on the device. Every other digital audio player in the world did exactly the same. Apple was praised for having an easier-to-use user interface. Let's jump to 2004 and do this again. A brilliant company called Research in Motion is releasing its new smartphone, the BlackBerry 7100T. It's got all kinds of cool features, a color screen, apps, it can connect to your email account, and now it's a phone. Next year is 2005. Android Incorporated is bought by Google to create a great thing, an operating system based on Linux for phones. Now let's jump to 2007. Apple is ready to make their own smartphone, having been beaten to the punch by so many others.
And an internet communicator, an iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not 3 separate devices. This is one device.
Apple's reputation is beyond secured, beyond set in stone. It's apotheosized. Apple releases a BlackBerry knockoff, and what's remembered is Apple invented the smartphone. We're done with the space age and the information age. Now it's the smartphone era. The first iPhone was intended to have no third-party apps. Apple would give you the apps they think you need. And if you think you need others, get wrecked, noob. But you'll always have the stocks app. That's emblematic of how Apple wanted their ecosystem. That you might attempt to use tools available to you to accomplish something never occurred to them. Of course! It's technology for people who don't understand or like technology. The iPhone isn't for someone who wants their phone to enable other great things. It's a toy, don't overthink it. And that's what the iPhone engenders. Enter a culturally disastrous piece of software. iFart. The iFart developer described how much money he made, and suddenly everyone smelled money. If you wrote software at the start of 2009, I'm sure you had multiple people come out of the woodwork to tell you their app idea. So now you have a gold rush, and in order to stake your claim, you have to play by Apple's rules.
And also Apple, like the certificates, and like there's a certain amount of suffering that you have to go through as an iOS developer that I don't know why people put up with it.
Pay a yearly fee for the privilege of developing the apps they're so proud of.
There's an app for that.
In exchange for being allowed to sell iPhone apps through the App Store, they take a cut, but you're not allowed to sell an iPhone app any other way. The device is Apple's. The operating system is Apple's. Apple alone determines what apps are allowed to exist in their ecosystem, despite any protestations of someone who paid for it. Behavior even worse than what had Microsoft hauled into court. When most companies do this, it's called an antitrust law violation. When Apple does it, they're building a walled garden. The etymological root of the word paradise, don't you know? There's plenty of Apple users who say that Apple's walled garden is a good thing. I challenge any of them to browse through the App Store and ask themselves if they really believe Apple is delivering any of the benefits of curation. The so-called walled garden isn't a curated garden, it's just an enclosure. Suppose you're a giant video game company. You used to make some great video games. Then you used to make the industry standard video game engine. But you're done with that. You want to make one last video game and just update it. So you are Epic Games, and you have Fortnite. You've done it. We got PUBG at home, and the system requirements are like nothing. It runs on a cardboard box. Or better, a tablet. Now you've got a massive audience of kids spending their parents' money on your store credit, V-Bucks. Now here's the problem. When you sell your Play money, Apple takes a cut. But fuck them, they don't actually do anything for you. They didn't help you get your software on the device. Indeed, they made it harder. They're not helping you by hosting the file. You've been hosting your own deliverables for decades. Most importantly, the central claim to why they would deserve a cut is that they put you in front of an audience. But that isn't true. You're quite capable of advertising your product without Apple. What they're doing is the opposite, stopping you from getting in front of an audience unless you pay. They're trying to leverage their captive audience as a resource to control the rest of the market. So there was a short stint where Epic said, all right, fine, we're going to encourage people to jailbreak their devices and install our app without your blessing. Media, fear, uncertainty, and doubt was all over it. They love the term sideloading. The right way is to trust the platform owner, like Apple. The wrong way is to trust anyone who contradicts Apple or their own platform's owner. Apple themselves tried to argue jailbreaking is illegal. As Epic Games, encouraging jailbreaking is not a very complete solution. You're hemorrhaging players. But wait, didn't Microsoft do this with Internet Explorer? Didn't the FTC correctly recognize that's an antitrust violation? Cool, we'll get the FTC to put a stop to this thing that should have been stopped a decade and a half ago. Then we can proselytize about how you should have control over your device and should be allowed to install software on it as you see fit. Apparently, Epic's messaging was excellent. The usual unpaid Apple shills had to pretend to be neutral, saying they don't know who could possibly be right.
To be utterly clear, I am very much on team let them fight here.
But here we are. When Apple violates antitrust law, it's fine. Epic lost that lawsuit. But having the same issue with Google, they brought the same issue up against them. And the jury saw reason there. Apple is for when you don't buy technology based on its merit, you buy it because it represents your place in culture. Since that works out for them, everyone else wants to be them. Inevitably, they drag their competitors down to their level. Apple plays songs. MP3s are good enough for people who don't know what an MP3 is, so the superior Ogg Vorbis format was destined to be dead on arrival. iPod required its own proprietary software to be usable. Now every website really wants you to use their own absolutely unnecessary app. iFart Gold Rush? Ask a Roblox dev how much money they're making under platform economics. They took a notch out of your screen? Everyone else is doing the same. If you agree with Apple's policy of we know what's best for your device,
We're trying to make great products for people.
that's free IT service. But ask anyone on Windows who's jumped through the hoops to disable Edge, OneDrive, Cortana, and now Copilot a million times, this philosophy needs to stop. Or ask any self-respecting audiophile who misses their 3.5mm audio jack.
Now, some people have asked why we would remove the analog headphone jack from the iPhone. I mean, it's been with us a really long time. Well, the reason to move on, I'm going to give you three of them, but it really comes down to one word: courage.
Since time immemorial, headphones standardized on a 3.5mm jack. 2014, Apple uncharacteristically buys Beats Electronics for $3 billion. Beats have never been good headphones. They've always been Beats by Dre, an inferior product that lives by the star power of the name printed on it. When you're Apple, Beats headphones are not what you want customers to be buying. You're trying to be the one making inferior products and adding value to them by sticking your name on it. What do? You destroy the entire headphones market and rebuild it in your image. Headphone wire is a simple thing. If you tried to patent it, you'd be rejected because it's too obvious. Anyone can make headphones and connect them to anything else. A wonderful ecosystem of interoperability. Meanwhile, a competing technology exists: Bluetooth. Instead of a reliable, simple wire, now your device has a battery and more complicated technology to connect. And connection is a nightmare. Half the time it doesn't work, and if it doesn't work, you're just out of luck. Phone doesn't connect to your car. Throw one of them in the trash and buy a new one. So Apple says, we're trying to make great products for people, and courageously takes away your 3.5mm jack. Buy new headphones. And you know what a nightmare it is to get Bluetooth to cooperate, so you probably ought to stick to the same brand. You know the hated stereotype of the Silicon Valley tech bro? It's because their soul is business husks, envious without disgust for how Apple makes an inferior version of an existing product, claims to have invented or perfected it, and is the world's first trillion-dollar company. So they also produce utter junk and hope to make $1 billion through sheer marketing. Let's check this article from Time, who, by the way, are the reason your grandma used to spell Xbox with a hyphen. Intro, yada yada yada. We were asked why Apple is so great and cool and dare I say handsome. 2 sections, vertical integration and technology as art. Less relevant, technology is art. An example of only Apple tries to make their products look good and only Apple tries to make their products simple. As demonstrated earlier, their insistence on not playing well with others makes their technology far more complex. The idea that only their tech looks nice is a matter of opinion. I don't think it particularly does, but to be fair, there's not much competition. More relevant, vertical integration.
What's vertical integration?
Imagine that your favorite corn chip manufacturer also owned the #1 diarrhea medication.
That'd be great, because then they could put a little sample of the medicine in each bag.
Keep thinking.
Except then they might be tempted to make the corn chips give you
vertical integration.
Wow, that should not be allowed to happen.
In short, they maintain their monopoly by leveraging their should-be illegal vertical integration. Also, let's just read this choice quote. "The only company that has even come close to being in a position to compete with more than 2 of Apple's core business strengths is..." Anyone want to guess? I'll give you a hint. The year is 2011, and the Surface wasn't announced until 2012, so it's not Microsoft.
It must be Google. The Nexus One was released in 2010 and made Steve Jobs say, "I'm going to destroy Android because it's a stolen product."
HP. This is the breathless media coverage trying to reconcile the fact that the world's first trillion-dollar company should have, by all logic, failed. The obvious explanation is that Apple successfully markets their brand, which is what leads to Silicon Valley tech bros thinking they can market a $400 juicer, and Sam Altman successfully convincing the world that his AI is so powerful it scares him. You know how John Deere hates the idea that you would repair your tractor? Fortunately, they have lost that fight. Apple, so far, has not.
They changed that. They're pro-right to repair now.
Are they?
And Apple is advocating for a right to repair bill that does not ban parts pairing or serialization, which in my opinion would be a functionally useless right to repair bill.
Apple says it just works. That isn't true and wasn't ever true. All software has bugs. All machines break down. Pretending otherwise just leaves you unable to fix problems when they arise.
One-step chain tensioning. Step 1, visit Ducati Authorized Service Center. 2-position handlebar laid down for road, up high for dirt, pivotable by visiting a Ducati Authorized Service Center. Topping up coolant? Visit Ducati Authorized Service.
Combine that with the idea that Apple is the only company making great products that just work, and as we've seen so far, everyone else wants to be just like them. Have an iPhone? Want to write your own app? Well, you'd better pay Apple $100 a year to join the developer program. Then you must use Xcode, which is, of course, only allowed to exist on Apple's operating system, which, of course, is only allowed to exist on Apple's overpriced hardware. Then you submit your own app for review by a secret software algorithm that has historically allowed many problems through to be allowed to go on Apple's App Store. After much money and time, at long last you can write your own goddamn software to run on your own goddamn hardware. Android provides an alternative. The SDK is free, and you can install an APK directly. But in an effort to be more like Apple, Google has been working hard to make Android worse. Manufacturers put their own builds of Android on the phone and are allowed to brand it as Android. When you sideload an APK, you have to dismiss a few warnings designed to steer you into sticking to Google's own app store. Manufacturers include their own bloatware and don't give you permission to remove it. You can jump through a few hoops to unlock the bootloader, if the manufacturer allows you to. Google themselves are quite finished with making Android good and are now getting back to their real passion in life, killing every technology anyone has ever liked. Every business you call will tell you, "We are recording this call, and if you don't like it, fuck off." You no longer have Google's permission to do the same. Apple has always had the philosophy that they know what's best for these products, so you should let them manage it. Crypto types were taught this lesson a second time later on. Now they have a great mantra: not your keys, not your coins. The idea being, if you don't have meaningful control of the coins, you don't have meaningful ownership of them. When you buy an Apple product, the company still maintains control over it. So I ask you, what did you get in exchange for your $1,000? However, the situation is not beyond repair. Cory Doctorow has an audacious plan. You should watch it. We can still build great things. Cory envisions adversarial APIs. How great would that be? Fans talk about how falling in line with Apple feels good. But what if they could have that seamless good feeling without supporting the company that gouged a notch out of your screen?
I like the handle here. That's so you can attach a chain and use it as a boat anchor!
I don't believe we can deprogram Apple's cultists, but I do believe we can educate more people about the value of standardization and repair, not walled gardens.